Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the school committee meeting of January 18th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And first thing on our agenda is to approve the January 18th agenda. Are there any changes or deletions? I know one thing is we will be deleting the approval of minutes. That we'll review minutes at our next meeting. Any other changes or deletions to the agenda? Uh, Dr. Carroll?
Yeah, just to clarify on the copy I'm looking at under policy subcommittee report, it says just JIC student, and that should just say student discipline, which is the policy that we have attached.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other changes or deletions? Okay, hearing none. I think we'll move ahead. Next thing on the agenda is superintendent's report. Superintendent Sheehan?
Thank you, Chair Rosemarin. It is my pleasure to begin this evening by introducing the Cunningham Elementary School Site Council. Dr. Jonathan Redden is going to be leading the presentation, and he will introduce members of his site council. Dr. Redden.
All right, good evening. Good evening. I'm just going to share my screen and then we'll get started. Good. So good evening, members of the school committee, Superintendent Sheehan, Dr. McKinney, and Dr. Pavlicek. Before I get started, a quick note, I know this is the last time I'll be presenting to Superintendent Sheehan. It feels like I've come full circle. When I started as a principal, Superintendent Sheehan also sat with me to review my presentation. I just wanted to go on record and say that the suggested edit she made this time came off a little differently this time. But I'm excited to present with the members of this Cunningham Site Council tonight. As always, we think of this presentation as a way to capture the things that take place at Cunningham School. And this presentation is built around the district's school goals, but centered on the belief that we're not going to get the most out of our students if they don't enjoy coming to school each and every day. It's always hard to capture that, but this is our attempt at it. For our agenda, we're going to do quick introductions. We're going to say who we are. We're going to talk about the school improvement goals, what to look for if you ever come to Cunningham. And we always end our presentation with the Cunningham experience. Yes, that's right. We have 17 members on the Cunningham Site Council. With a school of 640 students from preschool to grade 5, it is important to have representation of people willing to speak so our policies, events, new initiatives will play out. This year, I would like to welcome Assistant Principal Mr. Young, Mrs. Padilla, and Mrs. Chin to the team, as well as the return of Mrs. Butler in her new, very, very important role. These members provide me with feedback during the morning meetings, but also throughout the year on everything from my daily communications to the policies that shape our school. The bolded names are the members who will speak this evening. When discussing the number of slides to include in this presentation tonight, one member, who will remain nameless, provided me with the feedback that there is no way this presentation is as long as I think it's going to be, because I speak very low and very quickly. I appreciated that feedback when I heard it, so I'm going to take a breath now, slow it down, and we're going to get started. Cunningham School empowers young minds to be active and creative in their ability to take risks and problem solve in and out of the classroom. Students build a sense of understanding and compassion in order to maximize their individual, academic, and social potential every day. We came up with that 2 years ago as a site council, and I still like to share it on all of the presentations. The word bank that you see to the right of your screen is something we came up with as a staff, but I assure you that if we did this activity as a site council, it would look very similar. So we are a free K-5 school. We have 6 integrated half-day preschool classes and 3 full-day preschool classrooms. We have 4 classes in each of grade from K to 5, with a single strand French in classes from 1 to 5. 1 collaborative class in grades K to 5 with 2 in the 5th grade. We are thrilled to be able to add a math interventionist this year, a reading specialist for the kindergarten and for the preschool. And it is imperative when we talk about personalized learning, safe and supportive schools, and equity in learning, that we leverage all of the resources, including the people, to provide appropriate supports for our students. Each year, I think of a different way to share information about Cunningham. If anyone looks at some of the subgroups or numbers on this chart and think that it's going to correlate to a performance level or a structure of a student's day, then they would be mistaken. I want people to understand that we recognize some students benefit from different supports, with the interventionist maybe, or with an individual education plan. But it is our job, regardless of the resources and supports that we have, to make sure that we are immersing our students in an environment where they can perform at their best, and that we are always advocating to provide them with the things that they need at their appropriate level, so that we can personalize their experience, their learning, both academically and socially. And I believe that the culture at Cunningham is continuously developing and expanding on these very practices. And they do have measurable impacts that I will share with you today. Simply having the same resources at one school may not play out the same way at every single school. However, by continuously looking at how we can leverage what we do have to build around and support all of our students and all of our staff, so that each day, like I said, they enjoy walking into those doors because they know they're going to learn something new in a collaborative environment with their peers and colleagues. I just want to quickly review the personalized learning, safe and supportive schools, and equity in learning is how we're going to frame this entire presentation. Each of these goals will highlight our strategies and how we measure them in our schools. I'm not going to read them to you here because they're going to come up throughout this presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Young to talk about safe and supportive schools.
Great, thank you, Dr. Redden, and thank you to the school committee for welcoming us tonight. It's certainly a privilege to be here, and certainly in my new role as assistant principal, it's an honor to be able to speak on behalf of Cunningham staff and students and families about all the great things that are happening at Cunningham. So, as Dr. Redden mentioned, one of the words that comes to mind immediately when you walk through the doors at Cunningham is welcoming. It's a warm and friendly place where all learners and staff and adults feel safe and supported throughout the building. And if Dr. Redden, you'll go to the next slide, I just want to talk about a couple different examples for how we can, that our site council was kind of thinking about how to present the different examples of ways we support our students and we keep it, again, that safe and collaborative culture throughout Cunningham. So one of the ways we do this is through our PBIS team. We've worked very hard to create that positive culture and to highlight students that are exhibiting very positive behaviors throughout the school day. So last year we introduced our positivity assemblies. This year we kind of changed them a little bit, and we did that by, on a daily basis, we hand out, staff hands out cougar paws, and they're little tickets, again, small little tokens that the kids really appreciate. And they appreciate them because they earn those by doing something positive throughout the school. And students are recognized on a daily basis when we do announcements in the morning. We have some 5th grade students that, again, remind the students about the positive, affirming messages and ways to use some of their coping strategies throughout the day. And then we pull a ticket from a bingo bin that's outside the office. And one student's recognized, or sometimes multiple students are recognized for earning those Cougar Paw tickets. And they come down to the office and they get a prize, but they also get to wear a medal. That's a Cougar Paw medal. And it's just a great example of, ways that they can be examples for other students throughout the school day. And that medal just is a source of pride for those students. We take pictures of them at the beginning of the day and they're smiling. And at the end of the day, they come back to return that medal and they're still smiling. And they talk a lot about how other kids really congratulate them throughout the day for earning that medal. And that's really one of the ways that we're trying to highlight the different positive behaviors. And then on a monthly basis, we continue to do those positive assemblies. And those are where we recognize students that have earned at least one Cougar Paw ticket throughout the month. And one student from each classroom is recognized and they're able to walk down our imaginary red carpet and get the congratulations of the entire staff and the entire student population at the school. And it's just another way in which we celebrate those positive behaviors. And then if you go to the next slide, please, Dr. Redden. We have a number of additional ways in which we really want to create that positive culture, whether it's from some of our assemblies where students have gotten up and danced and learned about some anti-bullying messages that were really impactful on them, to the Spirit Days where we're able to collaborate and celebrate together, going out to the green space for learning opportunities as well as celebrations and free time. And then just giving back. So we have opportunities for families to bring in food to donate. And then we also have not only food donations, but we also have book donations. So students are able to give books and then also receive books. So it's a great opportunity for them to kind of give back, but also to kind of refocus on some of their learning and the priorities that they have. And then finally, our adjustment counselor, Courtney Henrik, has done a great job this year of going into classrooms along with Jenna Dillon to introduce the Calm Classroom. And that's a great opportunity for them, the students, as well as the staff, to be trained in ways in which they can, just be able to adapt quickly to changes throughout their day and to be able to find ways in which they can be comfortable throughout their day. So Calm Classroom has been a great addition to our school, and it's something that we're continuing to expand throughout the entire school. So those are just a few examples, and I'll turn it back to Dr. Redden to talk a little bit about our 5th grade school council.
Thank you, Mr. Young. So how do we know students are enjoying coming to school every day? Well, one piece of data is this year, and it's not new that I talk about student council. They've talked to you during these presentations in the past. But this year, our response from our 5th grade students was 79 students interested in being on student council. So how do you engage 79 students to work weekly on coming up with ideas to improve Cunningham? You can't unless you have an equal response from the staff. So I would like to thank those 14 staff members who are running these amazing groups with our 5th grade students at least once a week, but sometimes more than that. And it has already had an impact on so many things here at Cunningham School. I'm going to turn it over to Madam Morton to help describe some of the few things that is happening here for the first time at Cunningham School with our 79 students. And after this presentation, if you want to click that link, that's an edition of the first newspaper that was written by those students recently.
Thank you, Dr. Redden. So I'd like to take a moment just to elaborate on what safe and supportive schools looks like from a teacher's perspective. Cunningham creates so many opportunities for students and families to contribute to the strong community that we've built. Some of these examples that you see on the screen are our bus safety group, fire safety lessons from firefighters within our own community, the Marine Fish Tank group, who maintains our new saltwater fish tank, which is very exciting for students to see as they come in every day. We have mystery readers who range from parents and other family members, even to Cunningham staff and administrators who come and read to our students. And in addition to the student leadership groups that Dr. Redden spoke about, I would like to highlight the group that I run alongside Mrs. Walsh, who's another second grade teacher, and that is the Cunningham School Spirit Group. So our group consists of 12 students who volunteered to take an active role in contributing positively to our school community. And one of the events that we're planning right now at the moment is an activity to celebrate National Send a Card to a Friend Day, which is in February. They found the event on their own, and they wanted to find an opportunity for every Cunningham student to both send and receive a card from a student in a different grade. So that just speaks to how our students, and alongside with our staff, have taken an active role in our school community to build safe and supportive schools that every child is excited and eager to come to every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Morton. So to achieve success, we need to have structures and programs in place that foster personalization. So I'm going to read the goal for Cunningham. At Cunningham, staff will use data to continuously customize and adapt instructional strategies that are better suited to individual learners based on their students' unique needs, backgrounds, experience, and learning styles. In order to do this, we need to review data regularly, not only to ensure each student is making growth, but to help identify the practices that are actually impactful. Each staff member is committed to maintaining high expectations for each student's success, and provides the instruction and support necessary to ensure all students have what they need to be successful. If this also sounds like the work around equity, it should. You can't personalize learning for students without the focus on equity. Mrs. Slater will soon tell you what this looks like in her collaborative classroom, but first, Ms. Young will share more about the curriculum, programs, professional development, and assessments that are in place.
Thank you, Dr. Redden. So kind of a busy slide here for sure, but what I wanted to highlight is around the outside is our core curriculum. So in each of the different subject areas, that's what we are using to teach. Now, while everyone has that curriculum to teach, what's great about personalized learning is that the experience for the learner is different from one learner to the next through personalized learning. And with personalized learning, the learning process itself is a shared process between that learner and the educator. And it's based upon, as Dr. Redden said, the learner's unique strengths, their skills, their interests, and their needs within the classroom. Teachers have a very holistic understanding of a student because they gather and collect a variety of data metrics. That could be from Lexia, iReady, MCAS, and IntelliSpark, as well as just having conversations with students and collecting that anecdotal information from the students. And through that understanding of those students, again, they are able to educate the whole child. So in the classroom, students are given frequent choices, and that's a big part of personalized learning, is that the students have the opportunity to not only learn in the ways that they feel comfortable, but also to express their knowledge in a particular way that they also feel comfortable. So they can demonstrate that mastery in a variety of different ways. At the same time, one of the things that's happens quite frequently at elementary school, so it's not new, but it's something that I love to see as I walk around the school, is that the students themselves have their own personal goals. So they have their personal academic goals for each of the subject areas that they want to work on. And through developing those goals themselves, they are creating their own accountability, but they're also understanding how they can measure their own progress. And that is what is really at the heart of personalized learning, is that the student is taking the ownership of their own learning. Again, this continues to be an ongoing process for it. So we are going through a number, and have had a great opportunity to attend, at least the leadership, to attend a number of different personalized learning professional development opportunities throughout the year. And it's something that we're continuing to try to improve upon And now I want to turn it over to Mrs. Slater, who will talk to us what personalized learning looks like within a kindergarten classroom.
Thank you. Now that you've heard a little bit about personalized learning, I'm going to talk about what personalized learning looks like in my kindergarten classroom, specifically in the area of math. This year, we have adopted a new math curriculum in kindergarten, and it's called Bridges. I really enjoy teaching this curriculum, and I'm excited to see my students continue to grow and learn as mathematicians. One component of the Bridges curriculum is called workplaces. And workplaces are math stations where students participate in games and activities that help them practice, learn, and master content skills presented during the curriculum's main session, which is called Problems and Investigations. Bridges workplaces are developmentally appropriate and highly engaging for my kindergarten students. Students are provided with ongoing practice with key math skills while working at workplaces. Many workplaces incorporate partner games to encourage collaboration and teamwork. All workplaces allow for differentiation to address students' needs for additional support or challenge. During workplaces, teachers have the opportunity to work one-on-one or in small groups, while the rest of the class works independently or with partners. And during workplaces, students are able to choose what workplace they would like to visit using our workplace menu pocket chart. And students are encouraged to visit different workplaces throughout the week. The next slide just shows some photos of students engaged in workplaces. The students love when we introduce new workplaces. And the first day that we introduce a new workplace, we always play students versus teachers, and they get a kick out of that. And workplaces are definitely one of my students' favorite parts of our kindergarten day. And now I'm going to talk about one of our recently introduced workplaces this game is called Foxes and Dens. And the goal of this game is to be the first player to reach that 5th den. The emphasis of this particular workstation is on the strategy of counting on from the first number. So in order to play this game, the students take turns rolling 2 dice. One die has numerals 0 to 5, and the other die has the dots 1 to 6. Students have to name the number on the first die, which is a dice with numerals, and then they need to add or count on the number of dots on the second die. And if the next den on the game board has a number that matches the total, then that player can move their fox, which is their game piece, to the den and set it on top of that number. I have included the ways that this workplace can be personalized to each student depending on their needs. In order to support students who are having difficulty reading the numerals, the students can be directed to look at the dominoes at the bottom of the game board, or students can use 2 dotted dice instead. And in order to challenge students can be given a whiteboard to record an equation for each turn that they take. And students can also use 2 numbered dice. And this has been a big hit, this particular game. The students are really enjoying playing this newly introduced game. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it back to, I think, Dr. Redden, who is going to go ahead and speak about equity in learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Slater. That's great. So at Cunningham, we continuously implement and evaluate the school's instructional practices and policies to make sure that they adhere to our core belief that each student, when receiving appropriate levels of support, can make progress and achieve at high levels. And we mentioned earlier, one of our 5th grade groups, because when you think about like, how can you provide supports in a way that's engaging and fun? So one of the 5th grade groups actually plays math games, and it kind of turned into like the support group with kindergarten through 2nd grade students. It just worked out that way with the lunch schedule, where 5th graders can actually go down into the classrooms and work with students, all students in small groups, and make it fun, just because, having a 5th grader come help you with some math problems and math games has just turned into something that, we, are glad happened, that didn't necessarily anticipate how meaningful and impactful it would be. And Mrs. Young will speak more in this area about how staff work to promote equity and excellence. And then Mr. Farrell is going to speak to how families play a huge part, are huge partners in that work as well.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Redden. Actually, if you can go forward one slide, Dr. Redden, I'll speak to that slide first, and then we'll go back to have Mr. Farrell speak right after that. So as Dr. Redden mentioned, we really strive to make learning inclusive and culturally relevant for all of our learners. We've talked a lot about data, but as Dr. Redden said earlier, data really does also drive equity in learning. As educators use their assessment tools, they're able to identify the specific gaps, learning gaps and specific student needs, so that they're able to create those flexible groupings that do change throughout the year. And through those groupings, they're able to, again, close those specific student achievement gaps. Another way, as you can see on here, there's a lot of different opportunities for students to use their voice in these different learning opportunities. So whether it's having conferences with their teachers, whether it's working in centers, as Mrs. Slater showed, having a voice and having choice, and also having student agency is so important to equity. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about the curriculum itself, because the curricula, and especially our new curricula with our new math curriculum, our new social studies, our second step program in our SEL, as well as our Calm Classroom programs, each of these not only strengthens the personalized learning and the social emotional learning, but it also promotes equity because it lines directly to the standards. And that creates that really deeper inclusivity through the current understandings of best practices throughout the learning environments. And then finally, whether it's iReady or Alexia, there's a lot of adaptive capabilities within these programs that really personalize that learning for each individual student. And so these are just some of the examples of equity. And then Mr. Farrell will also talk about how families can be involved in the learning process of students as well.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Pardon me, can everybody hear me? No, we're good. I just wanted to thank everyone for letting me be a part of this. I'd like to thank all the site council members, especially a lot of the teachers up there. They are just rock stars. My wife and I are both sit on the site council. We're huge fans of what the site council does, but more the Cunningham staff and the Cunningham school itself. Thank you, Ms. Sheehan, for her service for long years for the Milton Public Schools. And also congratulations to the school committee for Dr. Burrows. I think that's a great step forward for a big next chapter for where Milton Public Schools has to go. Myself, my wife and I have two children in Cunningham in the French immersion program in grade 4 and grade 2. We came to Milton to engage these schools and use the French immersion program and have been nothing but thrilled from it. So when we get to be a part of this, like a couple of these inclusive programs that we run are RAD and Meet the Artist, reading about diversity is RAD. It's amazing to see. And I think the easiest way to speak about what the parents think about these programs, my wife runs the Meet the Artist. When we put the signups up, they fill up in minutes and hours, kind of a thing. It's like a sought after ticket. And if that doesn't speak to where the community is based on wanting to be a part of the school and to be able to push and integrate. And from this, these are two larger scale programs that are not set to one specific year, grade, or class, which is nice. It's a broader piece, it's a broader strokes, and that covers different classes, different ages. And it's fun because it's a broad topic. It's a great topic. Both of them are, but it covers all those classes. And then it goes all the way back to parent interaction at the school is sensational because we get to come help with teachers with math games, which we all know there's an overcrowding issue. And so for the ability for teachers to come take a little bit of the load off and help and get in there when you have 21, 22, 27 kids in a class, it's really amazing as a parent to come see how they do it when as a parent, you mildly complain you have 2. And if you had 27 coming at you like a hurricane, you'd be like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. But nothing but joy and happiness have I seen from as a parent myself. I work in real estate. I talk to a lot of other parents within other schools. It's just a lot of times when parents get to be boots on the ground, nothing but greatness comes not only from the specialness of the child interacting with the parent in a school setting, but also getting to engage and support your teacher in your own way of showing your affect and kindness for what they are doing for your child. So we see nothing but great results from an organizational standpoint. I'm kind of speaking on behalf of my wife, she's at the hospital tonight, but also on a way of seeing the children's faces light up, that interaction and all the great results we're seeing on the other end. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. That was great. Thank you. All right. So all of the internal assessment data slides that are included in this presentation at the very end. But I wanted to take a quick moment before we end it to speak to the MCAS, because unless you go through all of those slides and speak to each one of them individually, this is what's sort of publicly available to anyone who looks up information about Cunningham. So does it show we are having success with students? So if we move away from the 93rd percentile of DESE ranking that we are proud of, and we focus on the growth for our students, particularly our students in the high need subgroup and students with disabilities subgroup, this shows we have a lot of successful instructional practices in place at Cunningham that are working to not only show performance growth data, but also achievement data. And we are very proud of this. And this is the celebratory work that we do when it can be recognized through the MCAS. We definitely share it and to reinforce the practices and the work that we need to be continuously engaged in. Science has never been the strongest assessment content on MCAS for us. In 2019, we did not even have enough students in the high needs category to be reflected in our accountability data. But in 2022, we did, and yet our average improved. Science is not just taught in 5th grade here, but it's a culmination of all the work students have done with all of their teachers here at Cunningham. These students reflected here started with our new FOSS curriculum in 1st grade. To me, this data represents the belief that when teachers promote active engagement while continuously providing appropriate tiers of support in a safe learning environment, academic gains can and will occur at a higher rate. And at this point, we definitely want to recognize that there's a lot of data slides that we can definitely speak to in the questions, if you have any questions about them. But again, this is the public data, the public information, and we want to make sure that we use this to leverage the excellent practices that teachers are engaged in to make sure that students are achieving at high levels. And you've heard a lot from us now. Mr. Young's going to end this presentation with another way we're going to try to capture it in our Cunningham experience.
Thank you, Dr. Redden. So what we did was we put together a quick 7-minute slideshow, really highlighting not just the what of Cunningham, what is Cunningham? We talk a lot about numbers, we talk a lot about, we see the photos, we hear a lot about what is happening at Cunningham, but we don't want you to just think about Cunningham as a what. We want you to think about Cunningham as a who. Who is Cunningham? And so this video is trying to share with you exactly what that experience is like through the eyes of the students and through the eyes of the staff at Cunningham. So this is a video that kind of introduces you to who Cunningham really is.
When you hear the words Cunningham Elementary School, what do you think about? Maybe it's the beautiful red brick exterior of the building with the signature rock in front and the weather vane perched high atop the building. You might envision the various play structures in the front and rear of the school. Your initial thoughts could lead you to picturing the expansive green space, providing an outdoor area for the community to play and learn. Possibly you visualize the welcoming front doors and the entryway, where its values of being respectful, responsible, and a safe school are proudly displayed on the front steps. If you visited recently, you might even think about the lobby where its new saltwater fish tank is a talking point for all visitors. Or maybe you think about the decorated hallways and classrooms and spacious library filled with books for kids to read. As picturesque as the physical structure of the school is, however, to really know Cunningham is to not just know what it looks like, what its size limitations are, or what assessment data can tell us. Cunningham's true story can be told through the experiences of the learners and those that support each of these students inside these walls. This is Cunningham.
Something special about Cunningham is when I walk in the front door, everyone smiles and says hello to me. the good school, and I learn a lot every year, and I had the fish tank. Cunningham is such a special place because we have fifth grade student council where they can interact and work together, like newspaper, podcasting, marine fish tank, safety, and classroom helpers. Cunningham is special because everybody gets to play at the green space. Cunningham's a special place because of the students. They're really nice and they're willing to help anytime you need it. Cunningham is a special place because we have lots of spirit days like Crazy Hat Day, Crazy Dress Up Day, and Pajama Day. Teachers are always willing to help you in like any way possible, really, and always trying to help you become a better student. The teachers and the staff are always patient and kind to the students.
Cunningham is
A place that I like. I feel safe with my friends. Where I feel safe. A place where I can feel safe. Where I feel safe. Where I can do experiments. Where I can sing and dance. Where I can just be myself. Cunningham is a place where we have the best teacher. That has the nicest teachers. Where I can get help when I need it. Where I can play with my friends.
Where everyone is accepted to be who they are.
Where I can just be as myself. Where my family can come in and teach classes. Where I can get something delicious to eat. I can get something good to eat. Where I get to eat lunch with my friends. Where I can just learn new things. Where I can get better at art. Where someone is there to make me feel better. Where we celebrate our differences. Where I want to come to school every day. Where I can try new things. Where I can be a classroom helper. Cunningham is a place where you can see cool assemblies. Where I can learn new things and meet new people. Where I can learn a new language, new fluency. A safe place for me and for all the students in Cunningham. Where I can spread positivity. Where we can spread positive messages. Where we can write for the newspaper. That's like my second home. Where I feel valued. Where everyone is respectful, responsible, and safe together. Where I can have fun. Cunningham is a place where I feel special because I have a lot of fun. This is Cunningham! This is Cunningham! This is Cunningham! This is Cunningham!
This is Cunningham.
This is Cunningham! Cunningham.
This is Cunningham.
This is Cunningham. This is Cunningham.
So I'd like to first thank Ms. Young for putting that together, but also obviously all the students who were willing to participate and share. We've obviously had a lot of volunteers, a lot of videos didn't make it, and yet it was still, you know, one of Ms. Young's great productions, and just showed us a different way to sort of capture what we were trying to get at tonight. Again, we want to make sure that students are again immersed in and supported at an appropriate level, but also that they feel comfortable taking risks, being challenged, being pushed every single day. And we have the teachers willing and committed to that work. And that's what I appreciate most about working here with the teachers, with the families, because I know that everyone's passionate about doing this for students every single day with the resources that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Redden and the whole Cunningham team for coming tonight. This is just a wonderful presentation. It shows so much about what Cunningham is all about, and we really appreciate all that you're doing. I want to just give my fellow school committee members an opportunity if they have any questions or comments they'd like to share. I see some hands. Member White.
Thank you very much for a lovely presentation. It's very inspiring, and the kids look great. I love the last 7 minutes watching them all. And I think I really enjoyed watching Sarah, your presentation of what personalized learning looks like in a kindergarten classroom, because I think when I was first thinking about that concept, I was thinking about it more for the older child who was more verbal and able to talk about where their needs were, to see it even at that young age, developmentally appropriate. Really was great to see it in action. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Dr. Miranda.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Dr. Redden and the rest of the team for the presentation this evening. Obviously, I'm a little biased as my little one is at Cunningham, and we are proud to be part of the Cunningham team. I know that, I can tell you that firsthand, my daughter has had just a phenomenal experience. And I think all the themes that you touched upon today, I know firsthand in terms of the positivity, the ability that you've been able to foster safety in the school and a love for learning and a love for being together. I think there is never a hesitation on the part of my daughter to go into the school and just be with her friends and sort of feel a sense of belonging across all differences that make up the beautiful school that you run. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I want to echo what Member White said, that I just really enjoyed, Ms. Slater, sort of your presentation on what personalized learning looks in your classroom, because again, the reality is that it's a very different approach and framework to try to make sure that there is equity in learning and that all of our students that get the best chance possible to succeed academically and otherwise. So I really appreciated that. And just thank you again for just the wonderful environment that you're creating so that our students can learn and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda. Member Ross Denny.
I just want to once again echo what my colleagues have shared. Thank you to the Site Council and Dr. Redden, because this is one of the first presentations where we got a lot of detail of what personalized learning looks like in the classroom. And I'd love to get your feedback on, in terms of the gains that have been made since making that transition, whether it's, let me turn on my car, sorry, because all the lights are gone. When you made the transition, what were the biggest gains that you saw, whether it was in student attitude or student outcomes, or how teachers were able to address unfinished learning or any sort of needs that a child would have? So if there's any insight you can share so we can start to conceptualize the departure that we're going to see across the schools over the next year or so.
I'll take that one. I don't know if that was directed directly to Sarah. I think that the conversation around what we're doing for students now is a lot more focused. So we are talking about personalized learning, and we're talking about, what are we getting at when, we're engaging students in specific activities. What outcomes do we want? What, do we want them to sort of take with them? And how are we going to have them represent that they've learned or understood something? And I think when we talk about how we want to get at that, it's going to look different for each of the students. And that is now okay, because we are saying, we still have the end game when we think about, where we want students to be. And we need to make sure that we have a trajectory for each individual student to get there, as opposed to blanket approaches that then have a sort of putting pieces back in place after the fact. We want to plan that way so that it's built into the actual lesson, the activities, and the way we're supporting all students. So it's just a natural look, a natural feel when you walk into the classroom, regardless of how many adults are in there supporting students, regardless of what station the students are at. Like, it's just sort of the approach. And that, I think, starts with the conversation and the planning, and sort of, translates into what you actually see when you go into any classroom, including obviously Mrs. Slater's, who did a great job today. But we had Mrs. McLean recently share an activity on how she's supporting Calm Classroom with the whole staff during a staff meeting. So like this, it's just sort of permeating throughout the whole building, which is exactly what you want. So this really helps frame the work that have those conversations to enrich the experience.
So I just have one follow-up question, especially when it comes to students who take a little longer to master content. In a personalized setting, what does that look like? So for example, if it takes me 18 months to learn fractions, but it takes another person, 3 days, how does personalized learning accommodate that difference in the learner's rate of learning it? And anyone can answer that.
So so like learning fractions, and the goal of learning fractions it's going to take all students a different amount of time, but they're going to be learning something along the way. So it's the stagnation that we don't want. We don't want students not picking up new skills or sort of mastery skills. They might not be, they might not master fractions at the same time, but they're going to be learning things along the way to get at what you need to know to make sense of what fractions are. So I saw a teacher actually today in a class try to explain, the language that's involved in when you're talking about, 3/4 of something. They were like, "What's of?" And it's like, the teacher didn't tell them, and they had to break it down. They had to figure that piece out for themselves. Some students knew it, but that was okay. We know they've covered multiplication. They're already on fractions, and they're just thinking of like, what is a fraction? How is it represented? And these certain word problem examples that they were going over, and the teacher, leveraged the knowledge in the room. So students were supporting one another to make sense of some of that language that they were going to have to know to sort of get into their breakout groups. So again, it's, it's appropriate for students to, be going along, as long as teachers know exactly where they are and they're meeting them where they are. I think that's exactly what you want.
Thank you.
But anyone else can chime in. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Rustani. Member Varghese.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Dr. Redden and Mr. Young, and I feel like all of you were my kids' teachers at Cunningham, so it's so nice to see Mrs. Slater, who we had in kindergarten, and so nice to see Madam Morton in second grade. We had, both our girls had them, and had Miss Morton, and also Mr. Young, we had you through COVID in third and fourth grade, and it was awesome, and we had a phenomenal experience. And this is going to be our last year at Cunningham, and I'm really sad about that, because they started in kindergarten, and it's been a tremendous experience, and we love it so much. And your presentation was phenomenal. I really appreciated how you tied in personalized learning and equity in learning and safe and supportive schools, and with specific examples, as you've done in your presentation. That was very helpful, and it kind of streamlined the process. And it just kind of, I think this is almost like a beginning of many, many conversations that we should have, because I think it really kind of, we had this framework, these goals that we want to get to, but now I see a path there, and I think it's very clear. So I am very impressed by that. I am also really, really impressed by the video. Mr. Young, you work wonders. I've seen many of your videos over the years, and really great to see and hear from the students about their experience. So I really appreciate how you captured that, and also keeping it very positive, regardless of all the things that we could use right now, just to keep it, and really focusing on all the great things that we have in the school is really just a great perspective. And I am just so proud and excited to be part of the Cunningham family, and phenomenal job. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Member Varghese. Dr. Carroll.
Thank you. So yeah, just to echo my colleagues, but I won't go on too long. I also just really appreciated the presentation. In addition to what's been stated already, I also really appreciated the way that you explained the ways that equity and personalized learning support one another, and that the strategies are sort of mutually beneficial, which helps remind us that equity is about academic excellence as well. And I thought you just did a nice job about sort of in how you described these pieces, showing the way that they are interconnected and not separate initiatives. I do have one quick question and one final point, but the question just, I think I liked this. You said it was busy, Mr. Young, but I liked the slide where you sort of put the curricula on the slide with, in the blue box in the middle, sort of what you're looking for, regardless of the curriculum, when you want to see personalized learning taking place. So you have French language arts there, along with the others. Can you speak to sort of the ways you expect to see personalized learning playing out in French as well as English? Are they similar, different? How does that look?
Yeah, so, actually, Madam Morton, feel free to jump in since you do teach French, but, just from an administration standpoint, when I walk into a classroom, it doesn't matter which classroom I'm in, the personalized approach is really just around getting to know the students, understanding those student needs. So whether it's a language that I don't understand completely, I have a little bit of conversational French in me, but whether it's in a French class or whether it's during a math class, it doesn't really matter, because the skills themselves should be interchangeable. The approach should be interchangeable regardless of the classroom. And that's really what we're striving for, is that consistency across the building. And we're at the initial phase here. As we're just kind of unwrapping exactly what personalized learning looks like in the classroom and throughout the entire district. But it's something that we're trying to improve upon. So it really ultimately shouldn't matter which classroom I walk into. And Matt Morton, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that.
I'm happy to add as well. You took the words right out of my mouth. But one thing that I did want to add about the new math curriculum, the Into Math curriculum that we use in grades 1 through 5, is one of the benefits of the new curriculum is each lesson has a built-in reteach component. So it's something that I can use to pull students into small groups to reteach the lesson if they are struggling or if they need a little more help to get towards mastery. And then there's also a challenge component. So the students who can go a little bit further with the content to develop deeper knowledge. So those just good practices that we have built into our math curriculum are things that I'm using in the French curriculum as well to help students who might need some more support in phonics and reading, who might need some more support in comprehension. So all of those best practices that are embedded in all of the curricula are able to be adapted into French as well.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the last quick 2 points. So Mr. Farrell, I know we've seen you before, but I just, thank you, do a lot, and it's awesome, and thank you so much. I was just also really impressed by your site council at Cunningham, like the number of teachers and parents that are involved. That's just great to see, and I liked how you described, Scott, the rush to sign up for volunteer opportunities. That is like a great indicator of enthusiasm, engagement, and that's really awesome. The last thing I just was going to share, I had my moments through this presentation of thinking to myself, like, I quite honestly haven't spent time in Cunningham yet. And I do look forward to trying to figure out how to do that. But I have moments sitting in the presentation where I'm like, I would feel so lucky for my kids to go to this school. Like, this is awesome. And I was feeling that. And then I thought to myself, wow, it so happens this year, I know it's been different in past years, but you're the fourth of our 4 elementary schools to present the site councils to us at the school committee. And to take nothing away from you all, I was reflecting on, I think I had a version of that experience in each of the elementary site council presentations that we had, as different as they were, where I just thought, wow, like, this is awesome. And I would feel so happy, proud, and thankful for my kids to attend this school. They attend the amazing Tucker School, of course, but I'm just sitting here thinking that's really special, that we have a town where that's the case, and that we have such really excellent elementary schools that offer these amazing experiences to so many different families and kids. And so I just want to thank you for finishing out our elementary site council presentations in such a beautiful and moving way. And those kids were very, very adorable. And like, you could tell what they were sharing mattered a lot to them too. So congratulations to all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Carroll. And I just want to wind up and go back to your beginning, Dr. Redden, where you talked about how one thing you want to do is have kids feel good about coming to school. And that just really came through in your entire presentation. And the thing that spoke up to me a lot was the focus on student choice and student voice, and how motivating that is for kids to really be engaged in their own choices and planning for their own education. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for them, and will take them far as they move forward. So thank you all for coming tonight, and have a great rest of the school year. Superintendent Sheehan.
Well, I also wanted to thank Dr. Redden and Mr. Young and the school site council, but Mr. Farrell used the words joy and happiness. And I think it looks like he was talking about the parent experience as well as the student experience in their learning. So I just wanted to add that because I thought those were 2 great words to describe what was presented tonight.
Exactly. Member Verghese?
I just wanted to thank Scott for also talking about the parent volunteer opportunities. I have benefited from coming in and meeting with the students and getting to know a lot of those faces that were in that video, and appreciate everything that you have done. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Superintendent Sheehan, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you. So we have the Milton Coalition with us this evening, and first, we want to thank the coalition for all of your continued support of the Milton Public Schools, as well as the community at large over the past years. The coalition has supported us in analyzing the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which was given to our high school students, as well as the Youth Health Survey administered to our middle school students. So at this time, I would like to introduce the co-directors, Margaret Carrolls and Stormy Lung.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So I'm Stormy Learn. I'm one of the co-directors of the Milton Coalition, and here with me is Margaret, my colleague.
Hi, everyone. Margaret Carrolls. I just want to introduce a little bit about the coalition before we start. We are a group of members that represent a broad range of sectors from across Milton, and we all work together to address youth substance use and promote mental health. It's an honor to work with so many town leaders on issues that are of vital importance to the health and well-being of our community. Both Stormy and I would like to thank first the school committee for your time and your dedication to our students. We would also like to thank Milton Public School leadership and all 6 schools for their partnerships. The Milton Coalition attended every single open house last fall. We regularly give prevention information to all 6 principals and submit material for the superintendent's blog. We promote programming for students and families, professional development, and special projects that benefit the whole town. We could not do this work without the school's partnership. Tonight, Stormy's going to take you through the highlights of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey and the Youth Health Survey that were implemented last spring, as Superintendent Sheehan said. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thanks, Margaret. Along with me today, Principal Bill Fish, as well as Principal Karen from the high school, will be presenting along with me at the end. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Does everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So yeah, as Superintendent Janet Sheehan said, I'm presenting the results of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey and the Youth Health Survey. So this is just the breakdown of the presentation. So we'll have the introduction of what the surveys are, and then we'll go to the YRBS, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, then the YHS, the Youth Health Survey, and then lastly, just highlighting some of the priorities of the high school and the middle school, and then some next steps as a community. For introduction wise, the YRBS, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, it's a standardized survey developed by the by CDC, which is, I think they've been doing this since the early 1990s. And they've been doing this every year. And for us, the Milton High School team adds questions or remove questions for deeper understanding, for the questions to better reflect the Milton community. This survey was administered last spring in April 2022. And for the Youth Health Survey, it was administered at the middle school, Pierce Middle School. These questions are very similar to the questions of the YRBS, but the wording is slightly different to help reflect the middle school audience. And those questions are developed by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, their partnership with the Department of Early and Secondary Education. And they do the survey in random communities throughout the entire state. This past year, Milton was not one of the communities that was randomly selected. We have been selected in the past, but just not this past administration. The Pierce Middle School team, in addition to the standard YHS questions asked, they added or subtracted questions similar to how they did in high school for deeper understanding. Originally, we were supposed to administer this in April of 2020, but due to scheduling, we had to postpone it till May 2022. And just so you know, that means that this was administered after April break, so some of the data points can just remember that fact for some of the data points. For both surveys, these were both multiple choice surveys that were administered electronically via SurveyMonkey provided by the Milton Public Schools. It was completely optional, anonymous, and confidential. Students were not forced, did not have to take the surveys. Their names were not recorded at any part of the survey. So none of the responses can be traced back to them. The results of the survey was analyzed by Lynch Research Associates with the funding from the Coalition Grant. The Lynch Research Associates has analyzed the past 2 survey administrations that we've done with the public schools. So they have previous data they have been able to compare and run analysis on what is statistically meaningful and all that other statistical jazz. So I'm going to first talk about the YRBS, the survey at the high school. So just to highlight some of the student assets that were found through the survey, out of the 50 YRBS risk indicators that were studied, Milton performed better than state in 41 of them. Some other highlights include that the rates of alcohol consumption, marijuana use, vaping, and prescription drug misuse decreased at the high school between 2019 and 2022. Students reported very, very strong relationships with adults in their lives, including school staff, their parents, and other adults that they have contact with. And nearly all types of violence are lower than the rest of the state. And the rates of engaging in risky sexual behaviors are significantly lower in Milton compared to the state. So those are some of the highlights just from the reports. And now I'll specifically talk about each substance. First is alcohol. So in red, these are the numbers from 2014 at the high school, and yellow is 2019. The light blue is from 2022, so this past administration, and the dark blue is just a comparison to the state from their last administration in 2019. So as you can see, rates of alcohol use and binge drinking have slightly decreased, or at least binge drinking is about the same, but rates have decreased from 37% to 31%. And you can see that gradually decreasing over time. Another thing that we found was MHS students tend to begin consuming alcohol at an older age compared to students statewide, so they're delaying their use a little bit later than other students across the state. And then binge drinking is the current use, or the past 30-day use, is about the same as it was in 2019, but you can see that it is significantly lower than it was in 2014, but it is still higher than the state. So work still needs to be done in that area. For marijuana use, compared to results from 2019, both lifetime use and current use of marijuana at the high school were lower in 2022 compared to 2019, and significantly lower compared to 2014. So you can see that there's been a decrease over time in that. And we are lower than the state in terms of marijuana use in the past month. One interesting point that we found was that typically male students engaged in marijuana use more frequently than female students. And another point that we wanted to highlight was that out of all the substances that we had asked about perception of risk, so how harmful do you think it is for you to, for your peers to use marijuana once or twice a week? Marijuana is scored the lowest. I think more than 50% of students said that they didn't think there was no risk, or only a slight risk. So that is of concern, because that can factor into increased risk, increased use of marijuana among students. The next one is nicotine use. I grouped both cigarette use and electronic vapor product, or vaping, into this category. So for vaping, it has decreased from 48% in 2019 to 26% in 2022. So that's almost, that's a significant decrease, and that's a huge win. And we are lower than the state compared to 2019. But the interesting thing we found this time around was that cigarette use was also increased from 2019. I couldn't find the data point for 2014. More than 50% of MHS students said that it was sort of easy or very easy to get cigarettes. Some of the hypotheses that, or reasoning that we might have for increased use in cigarettes, was that vaping products, I think from 2019 or to 2022, it was a little bit harder to get with the increased regulation, where cigarettes may have been easier if their parents or they had some easier access to it. But that was an interesting point that I wanted to highlight, and something to keep an eye on for the next coming years. And then lastly, we had prescription drug and other substance use. So we asked students if they ever taken prescription drugs without a doctor's prescription, or are not following their doctor's prescription. From 2019 to 2022, there's been a slight decrease in that statistics, but rates of other substance use, including cocaine, ecstasy, heroin, and methamphetamine, it has slightly increased from 2019. The rates are similar to the state, ranging from 2 to 3%. And although those percentages are small, those are still our students. And this is concurrent with other communities that we've been talking to, that they've seen a rise in some of these substances, especially methamphetamine. So that is something as well that we have, that has been put as a red flag in our radar for our work. This is quite a busy slide, but we'll go section by section. But this slide really addresses the mental health risk factors that we have also analyzed. So in the first column, we looked at bullying and discrimination. For bullying, you can see that for cyberbullying, more students reported that they were cyberbullied in the past year in 2022 compared to 2019, and slightly more for being just bullied on school property in the past year compared to 2019. We're still under the state level, but these are still concerning numbers. And for discrimination, we've never asked these questions before. Neither has the state, and neither has the CDC, this on the national level. So some of the questions were asking the students reporting if they've ever been treated badly due to their race or ethnicity, or even their sexual orientation. And some of the results is that about 1/4 of MHS students report they have been treated badly due to their race or ethnicity in the school. And about 20% of MHS students reported they have been treated badly due to their sexual orientation. Again, I don't have previous numbers on these because we've never asked them before, but those are some concerning statistics as well. We also ask about depressive symptoms and anxiety. So for depressive symptoms and anxiety symptoms, last time that we administered this, we thought that they were still concerning because it was about a third about a third of the students reported they have depressive symptoms or anxiety symptoms in the past year. And then this time around in 2022, the numbers have increased and not decreased. About 60% of students reported they had poor mental health during the past month. And interestingly enough, and similar to national levels in adults as well, female students reported higher rates of depressive anxiety symptoms. And then for suicide, self-injury, and self-harm, so we asked about suicide attempts, suicidality, and these numbers have increased over the past 2 years compared to 2019 and 2022. And that we are still lower than the state, but we are higher than it was in 2019. And again, female students reported higher rates of suicidal ideation and attempts compared to male students. And we previously did not ask self-harm, the self-harm question, but when we asked it this time around, about 15% of students reported ever committing self-harm in the past year. So all these statistics, especially the mental health ones, are very concerning. Next, I'll just move on to the Pierce Middle School questions, and I'll save the questions to the very end to answer for the YRBS questions. So the YHS is administered at Pierce Middle School, and generally the Pierce Middle School does really well compared to the state. So out of the 42 YHS risk indicator study at Pierce Middle School, Milton students performed better than the rest of the state in 35 of them. Rates of alcohol consumption, marijuana use, and vaping are lower than the states, and rates of alcohol consumption and vaping have decreased at Pierce Middle School from 2019 to 2022. Pierce Middle School demonstrated very positive social norms, which that means is that students were less likely to think that their peers are using substance use, so that really does influence the decrease in substance use at Pierce Middle School. There are very low rates of riding with a driver who was operating under the influence of either alcohol or marijuana. And similarly to the high school, almost all Pierce Middle School students reported positive protective relationships with an adult, and they have a great sense of belonging at their school. For Pierce Middle School, all the substances, because it's been decreased and it's considered very low numbers. You can see that this is 5%, so it's very, very, very small. Again, the red is Pierce Middle School in 2019. The yellow is this past administration in 2022. And the blue is the state in 2019. The state has not released their newest data. It takes them years for them to do that. There's been a decrease in almost every category except for the marijuana use. In 2019, it was in the low 1 to 2%. Now it's increased to about 3%. So that's also something to keep in mind of, especially going back to how the middle and the high school, they have low perception of risk. It is very similar to how middle school students are also thinking as well in regards to marijuana use. For mental health, we asked questions around bullying, depressive symptoms, suicidal behaviors, and self-harm. For bullying, rates of students reported being bullied or being cyberbullied in the past year has increased from 2019. But overall, male and female students reported that they've experienced bullying at a similar rate. So no certain gender reported experiencing more than the other. In terms of depressive symptoms, we can see that from 2019 in the red and 2022 in the yellow, that there has been an increase in students reported depressive symptoms in the past year. Mirroring statewide trends, as well as the high school female students are reporting more depressive symptoms than the male student counterpart. 10% of Pierce Middle School students have considered suicide in the past year, compared to only 7% in 2019. And 22% of Pierce Middle School students have reported self-harm in the past year, compared to 16% in 2019. So I'm going to pass it on over to Principal Fish, who will share the priorities of the Pierce Middle School, and then he'll pass it on over to Principal Cahill, who will do the same for the high school.
Stormy, thank you. Good evening, everybody. So our leadership team, which was comprised of our building administrators, school counselors, and adjustment counselors, continue to prioritize social emotional skills, mental health, and bullying as risk factors that we're most interested in based on the feedback and the data that was came through the youth health survey. And just to speak briefly about each of those priorities, specifically around bullying and the presence of bullying, I think after what our children have been through socially over the past couple of years, and the impact on them during this crucial time of their development, we weren't entirely surprised to see an increase in dysregulated social skills and bullying and cyberbullying. In unpacking that a little bit and speaking with our health teachers, I was interested to learn that this was a place where we lost instruction. Like we've continued to have, repair, unfinished learning. And I think we often think about that through an academic lens, but in learning more from our health teachers, those are the people who are tasked with explicitly teaching the bullying curriculum, they report the impact of lost instructional time over the past couple of years, which has been, in a better spot now, but the experience was a lot different when students were learning these core social skills during remote learning and hybrid learning, and they lost a lot of the not just the content but the depth of it. For example, teachers saw gaps in 8th graders' understanding of concepts around bullying, like the definition of bullying, being able to identify upstander skills and languages. So this unfinished learning in social learning, specifically around bullying, is currently being addressed explicitly through the health curriculum. The second priority that we've talked about or we've identified is our use of the IntelliSpark social emotional screener. The majority of our students participated in the participated in the IntelliSpark screener over the course of the past couple of years, which has given us valuable data to garner further insights into our students' well-being. We're able to use those data to deepen our understanding of where our students are, who they are as people, their strengths, their interests, and also the opportunities to support them. And we're able to use those data during in some of our collaborative structures, like our student support team and during our team meetings. And it's been a valuable tool in getting a more rounded and triangulated perspective on how our kids are doing. And finally, the third priority that we are in the process of implementing is the rollout of the Calm Classroom Daily Mindfulness Program. I think most people are aware that through the support of the Milton Foundation for Education, the Calm Classroom program is being implemented throughout the district. At Pierce, we're happy to report that we will be piloting the program during the second semester of the school year. And we view this as a strategy for promoting student well-being school-wide. There are a lot of data around from schools that have implemented this program, from decreases in student tardiness and attendance issues to increases in engagement and ultimately gains in school culture and climate. We view the implementation of the Calm Classroom Daily Mindfulness Program as a nice strategy to continue to support the advancing these priorities. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm happy also to turn over to Principal Cahill.
Thank you, Dr. Fish. Thank you, Stormy. Good evening, everyone. Just following up on what Dr. Fish said, at the high school, the administrative team, along with our school counselors, prioritized these 3 items as far as feedback from the YRBS and just how we can support our students the best. A few weeks ago, Karen McDavitt and Jenny Beliveau spoke about some of the SAL supports that we're putting together in the district. And at the high school, 2 of them are Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports, Vape Educate and I Decide. Through the support of Milton Coalition, we were actually able to implement our initial Vape Educate courses. So instead of students being removed from school for being caught vaping on school grounds, we are now spending 6 hours with them, educating them on the risks of vaping, the side effects, long-term ramifications from that. And what we're finding is that we have students who are repeat offenders to the vaping. And so their next step that we are doing is referring them to I Decide, which is a partnership that we have with Mass General Hospital. We're part of a pilot program with them where they are supporting students who have tendencies to be repeating the vaping and have those potential addiction issues. We're working with families. This is something that we're doing directly with families. We've had conversations with families before we make referrals. Parents can choose to not refer their child, but so far it's been a very positive experience for those families that we've worked with, recognizing that we're here to support their children and keep them on track. As Bill said, I'm going to talk about Calm Classrooms. Again, through the generous support of MFE, we are a few trainings behind the Pierce Middle School in implementing Calm Classroom, but it is something that our SEL leads are working with the staff on district-wide, again, to support, to have that mindful experience every day in the building for all students. The IntelliSpark screeners is something that we are doing district-wide, and again, as Dr. Fish said, information that we're using to best support our students. It's allowing us to understand if they have connections with staff, if they're having concerns with friends, making those connections. So we're able to use that information to better support our students. And I also put on here as one of those second priorities also is our Bright program. And this is something that we've had in place for a few years now. Prior to COVID, we had it in place. And I will say, unfortunately, since COVID, we've seen an increase in students who have to access this program. This program is not a special ed program. It is a program for students who possibly have school avoidance, anxiety, hospitalization, concussions, and they need to transition back into school. Through the support of our Bright teacher, our counselors, and our regular classroom teachers working with the Bright classroom teacher, these students are able to transition back into school. Some of them might spend a few weeks in Bright, some of them might spend a few days. It really is student and teacher figuring out case by case how the student can transition back into school, feeling supported, getting that emotional support they need, but also filling those academic gaps that they have if they were out of school. So it's been very successful, very great outcomes for our students. And the third one is access to school counseling. We have 3 phenomenal school adjustment counselors, and they support any needs for students on IEPs and 504s, but at the same time, at the high school level, students are able to self-refer, and students are accessing the counselors, not just our adjustment counselors, but our school guidance counselors as well, for supports that they need. And it is about college and career planning. It is about having those hard conversations. It's about post-secondary plans. It's about relationships. And I will say that the number of students that have accessed our counseling departments in general has just honestly increased over the years. As Dr. Fish said, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of repair that has to be done through learning loss, and that those skills that some of our students have not had over the past few years because of COVID, they're lacking those skills. So we're working with students in our group guidances, but also in individual one-on-ones to get those skills back up and running. So for Milton High School, those are what our priorities are. And again, I think they complement the middle school very well. But I'm going to turn it back over, I believe, to Stormy at this point.
Yes. I just have one more slide, so I'll present that and then we'll take questions at the very end. So the biggest question is just we have all this data, but where do we go from here? So the first thing obviously is to educate all of our stakeholders, not just everyone here, but our students, our staff, our parents and guardians and community members, not specifically the data, but just how that data does impact learning, how that data impacts health and wellness of the community. We want to continuously ensure that we have best practices and curricula that for our students. So continuously revising curriculum and various classes to really focus on areas that are of need, of priority, as Principal Kale and Dr. Fish have highlighted. I know some of this has already been in momentum for some of the curricula, and continuously implementing innovative practices to support SEL and mental health. Some of the programs already mentioned, including the Bright program, Calm Classrooms, and Telespark, are all great programs to help increase the capacity for social emotional learning, mental health well-being, and additionally, we've as a town hired a new social worker, Ann Grossman, who is available to all Milton residents. I know she's also been a great support for the Milton Public School adjustment counselors of all ages, from elementary, middle, and high school. So she's a great addition to the capacity to address mental health. And lastly, it's a system-wide vertical approach. We can't do this the schools can't do it alone. The Milton Coalition can't do it alone. We have all different partners across the community to help us. So using all different kinds of assessment, including the YRBS, the YHS, these surveys, different screeners, assessments from the health department, working all together as town agencies to really put our students' health and wellness first, and educating parents and guardians to talk to their children, making sure substance use prevention materials are widely available is key in reducing substance use and promoting mental wellness. That is our presentation for today. I know that was a lot of data. I know that was a lot of information. And I'll open it up now to questions. I'll stop sharing and just share when needed. Dr. Selena Miranda.
Yes, hi. First, I want to say thank you for the presentation. I do think that there are many areas of concern. So I'm glad we're looking at the data and sort of thinking, how do we respond to where the needs are? And I think related to that, I just have a follow-up question for Ms. Cahill. If you I see the priorities and I see them reflected in terms of the data, but what I didn't see is a response to having 25% of students who feel like they get treated badly because of their race or ethnicity, and then also the 19% of students that are reporting that they are being treated badly due to their sexual orientation. I just think these are, definitely the counseling deal sort of would help address the individual experience, but how do we go ahead and make sure that the schools are a safe place for all of our students, and that our students are feeling a sense of belonging and feel like they're being treated fairly despite of who they are as people. So just wondering in terms of what the high school will do to address those concerning numbers.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for that question, Dr. Miranda. Sorry, you just disappeared on my screen. That is something that we're also talking about. As you said, individually, we're having those conversations with students as they come up. As far as a general, there's a few different things that we're doing. As far as the different groups that we have at the high school, we do have clubs after school that students are part of, where they are expressing their concerns to the advisors of the clubs, if I can call them that. And those are conversations that we're having as an administrative team with those advisors as it comes up. I actually did an assembly with students today. I'm doing one tomorrow too, where I am offering up. I did this last year and I haven't done it yet this year, but breakfast hours with me, not for the parents, but for the students, to come and have conversations with me about any concerns that they have that they want to bring to the table. As far as the questions you're asking specifically, as I think you said, was it the 25%? Is that what you said?
Yes, there is 25% of the students who are reporting that they're being treated badly because of their race, and then the 19% treated badly due to their sexual orientation.
And that's an ongoing conversation I'm having with my leadership team too, to identify who those students are. We're trying to empower our students to have those conversations with people who they identify in the building. I'm not talking about identifying with other students, but I'm talking about identifying with staff members. Staff members that they're identifying with. And that's something where we can do better. We're also using the incident reporting system, on our website, where students are reporting if anything is happening. I'd like to say that if students are feeling not supported, I'm asking them to speak up, because I do feel that we do have a very open communication at the high school. And if we have to do better on that, that is something we have to recognize and do better. We have one of the other things that we're doing is we are working with Adina Schechter and Claire Galloway Jones. She's our DEI restorative justice coach and our DEIB director, to work with our students, as far as we have circles, restorative justice circles that we're doing on a regular basis. I think we do 2 or 3 circles a week. And some of our students are actually going to the Pierce Middle School to do some of the circles at the Pierce Middle School as well. That's just a sidebar. But we have our restorative justice circles. We have a young women's group that one of our adjustment counselors actually facilitates. They've brought in guest speakers. The young women's group has been going, I think, 4 or 5 years now. We've had a young men's group that is not running this year. It is something I'm trying to get up and running, but we need an advisor for that. I've reached out to a few people to ask if they would be advisors for that group. I'm waiting to hear back. But those are a few of the other initiatives that we are taking: the restorative justice, working with our DEI director, and those hard, courageous conversations, if I can call them that, with our students and staff as well. I don't know if that addresses your whole question, but it's not something that's, it's a work in progress for us as well.
Thank you.
Member Rostani?
Good evening, and I want to thank Margaret and Stormy
and the Milton Coalition for doing this work on behalf of our community. I know we have the IntelliSpark data and we have our incident reporting system, but you're actually presenting some findings that are coming from external to the district, and it gives us a picture and a perspective on what's happening. And before I make my questions and comments, I want to preface this with that for people who are watching, I believe that this is a community opportunity as well as a challenge. I believe in the last decade or so, if not longer, a lot of society's ills have fallen at the feet of schools and teachers to resolve. But I do think there is some responsibility that we bear by creating an environment where, and actually when we juxtapose this against what we just saw at the Cunningham, where students are saying, I feel safe, I feel safe. If you're a student of color or you're in the LGBTQ+ community, there's a very high chance that it's not safe for you. I've had conversations with Ben Kelly last year before he left about an environment where if you report being harassed because you're a student of color, or if you're, for whatever reason, you can be retaliated against because you told an adult. And if you respond to the student and there's an altercation, you could be suspended for getting in an altercation. So if you're a student for whom bullying or harassment is something that you will experience on a regular basis, sometimes there feels like there's no recourse. And I'm really concerned that while we're thinking about what to do and we're studying what to do, you know, there are kids every day, I know some of them personally because their parents have reached out to me, who recognize, well, being bullied in the high school because I'm Black or because I'm an LGBTQ+ student is just part of life and we have to accept that. I want to put the onus on all of us to say, no, that's not good enough. You know, it's hard being in society where someone looks at you and doesn't like you and doesn't even know you. I'm sure all of us have had some experience where we've been othered, but the difference is for many kids of color, that means you could be shot, you could be bullied, you could be arrested, you could be harassed in school and have no recourse. You take it on the chin and you accept it. So I look forward to seeing something before the end of the school year about very specific strategies to protect those kids that don't feel safe. Now, with that said, moving on to two other issues that was in the data. I noticed you said that alcohol use has gone down, and I'd love to know if there are any hypotheses as to why that might have happened. In addition, the other substances that students are abusing, like I'm old, like where are these kids finding this? Like, honest to God, I can barely drive to, find my way around the Boston metro area. And to think that students have access to methamphetamine, where does one buy that? And if you don't know the answer, feel free to say that because I don't know, so I can't realistically expect you to know. But I'd love any insights you can share on those two topics. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Those are two really good questions. To the first one about some of the hypotheses I might believe as a coalition may have about, decreased use in alcohol over the past years. I think one of the biggest one is COVID really happened, and that really limited the availability of alcohol for kids. We asked this question in the YRBS just generally, like, where do you get your alcohol? Or if you've consumed in the past 30 days, where do you access your alcohol? A lot of it is social access. It's not retail access. So, seeing their friends probably cut off a lot of their access to the alcohol. I think that's probably the biggest one that contributes to it. Otherwise, we haven't really, I've done focus group with youth as well. And I think the biggest one is still just social access. And I think another one that both the coalition that we as a coalition have been really working on is trying to teach parents and youth as well, just skills to turn down or to understand like how not to put yourself in situations where you will be in the presence of alcohol, or teaching parents how to role play with their children about, their friends. They're saying, like, let's go to the woods, or let's go to this party. How can you, like, teaching those scenarios of how you can throw your parent under the bus to say, oh, I think my mom needs me to come home to do this or that. So those are some of the skills and workshops that we've been really pushing for the past 3 or 4 years. But I think social access is probably the biggest key factor in decreasing alcohol use. And then your second question is a very interesting one, because although we as older folks may not know where to access these substances, I think youth are very smart when it comes to social media use. So social media is probably one of the biggest ways that they are accessing substances. I think that goes really parallel to what Katie Greer, that she presented last week about using social media, being smart about social media presence, understanding, the safety around social media use. I attended this webinar, this national webinar that was hosted by some sheriffs in Phoenix. They went through all the steps of how you can use hashtags and emojis just to search like 5 emojis. Then they can search on Snapchat geographically, like how, like which dealers are in what areas. It's amazing that technology can do that, but it's so dangerous and so terrifying at the same time. So I think it's a lot of, social media access is probably the biggest one. Methamphetamine, it's probably one of the ones that is creeping into our communities very slowly. The Boston Police Department have reported that more and more methamphetamine is being trafficked into MassCast, just right by BMC and I think Boston Medical Center, that area. And it's slowly making our way towards the outskirts because the public transportation system is accessible. So those are some of the reasons as to why those are slowly creeping in. And the dangers around that is that most oftentimes they are also laced with fentanyl too, and it's hard to detect that as well.
Thank you for your detailed answers. And I do have one follow-up question for MPS. We've had the incident reporting system for, racism and bullying, et cetera, but we've never seen any reports. We've seen the IntelliSpark data. I would love for the next school committee meeting that we can see what is reporting by school so we can compare that to what we're getting, what we just received today. Thank you.
Can I just use this opportunity to share with you that we are holding a training for the whole community on youth mental health first aid. It's a day-long training, Friday, February 10th, with our partners at Aspire Health Alliance. And we're really trying to build the capacity of the whole community to be supports of our youth. This is helping adults who work with parent youth 12 to 18 years old on how to identify mental health issues, how to support youth through mental health issues, whether it's chronic or a crisis, and really giving them the information they need to be able to do that. So it's not all on the schools. We all need to be a part of the solution. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say thank you to Margaret and Stormy and Principals Cahill and Fish for coming tonight to talk about this. And it was really helpful to hear both what was identified in our surveys, but also what we're doing about the issues that we're seeing in the schools, in their schools. And it's a work in progress, but I think it's making a difference, as we're seeing in some of the data. One of the questions that I had about the comparisons with the state data is we're in a little bit of an awkward position, as I think Stormy referenced, that it takes a few years for the state data to be calculated, and that we're comparing post-pandemic or toward the end of the pandemic findings with pre-pandemic state numbers. I just wonder how, in the next time we do this, if we're going to be comparing, a couple, 2-3 years out of the pandemic with the actual pandemic state data, and it's just a challenging data set to get that state comparison. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, it is quite challenging, and I think it takes the state so long is because they collect data from all across the state. It's randomized, and they have to clean it, and it's a lot. And I think they don't have the capacity to do all of it in a short amount of time. Although I don't understand why it takes almost 2 years for them to do it. But they last administered their YRBS, I believe it was fall of 2022. So that was just a little bit before us. And it usually takes about a year to a year and a half for them to release their data. They might have already released the YHS data from the state. I would have to double check, but it does take them significantly long, and I think even longer on the national level, because there's all the other states that have to do it as well. I know it is difficult to compare to where the state is from year after, when you're kind of off in terms of the data collection. But I think what's more important personally, I think it's just how we're doing individually as a community, year administration after administration. I will have to praise Milton Public Schools for being so supportive and, I would say, forward with data collection and screenings, because it's not like that in other districts, and it's so hard to get good data from other districts, and it just makes it impossible to do anything when you have a district full of resistance. And Margaret and I work with many other coalitions that run into significant barriers when collecting data, but we're so grateful that the Milton Public Schools is so just on board and willing to put our students' health and wellness first. So that has really made it a lot easier to do this work as a community. Yeah.
Thank you. Member White?
Can you just, this is a question for the principals. Can you talk about the participation? How many students who were given the opportunity to participate in these surveys did it, and how many did not?
Stormy actually has the raw data. I can tell you just from my perspective of, we didn't have many families. It was like, at Pierce, they had about 20 families who opted their children out of participating. And then beyond that, Stormy would have the actual, the actual N on how many students did participate or did complete it in whole.
Yeah, I have that data. So for Pierce Middle School, we have for this past administration, there were about 540 students that completed the survey this past year. We did not count how many were considered who opted out. It's just how many students were who completed the survey. And at the high school, we had 1,006 students who completed the survey. And then out of that 1,000 students, we had 66 students were excluded because they were missing almost half the data, or even more than half the data, because they didn't complete it in time. So for this high school 940 student survey were comprised of the final analysis for that sample. And again, for the middle school, it was 540 students at the middle school.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. We also appreciate your work, Milton Coalition, on behalf of the whole community, and we appreciate our partnership with you and look forward to continuing our work with you in the years to come. Thank you for coming.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Superintendent Sheehan, is that it for your?
I do have some updates.
Yeah, good.
Just a few updates here. I would also like to thank the coalition for their partnership and thank Principal Cahill and Dr. Fish for their work with the coalition. On January 12th, we held our preschool information night for parents and guardians. I would like to thank our leadership team members who were involved in making this a welcoming event for our new families entering the Milton Public Schools and for our families who already have children in our preschool program. The families who were able to join us for the information night asked some very pertinent questions. That always helps us in our planning. That same evening, we launched the preschool pre-registration. As of 11 o'clock this morning, we have had 95 families complete that pre-registration. And we would just like families to know that the lottery will be held on January 27th for any program where interest exceeds seats that are available. Any family who has completed the registration by January 26th will have their child's name included in the lottery. And families will be notified of placement or waitlist status between February 1st and 3rd. The online registration will take place from February 8th to February 22nd, and screening will take place in late May and early June. And of course, families will be notified. Our kindergarten pre-registration has been open since December 1st. And to date, we have 290 families who have completed the pre-registration questionnaire. We're looking forward to holding our kindergarten information night. It will be held virtually on January 26th. And I would just like to let families know that I did announce that it would be an in-person information night, but it is that was an error. So it will be a virtual information night this year. All families who have pre-registered have been sent the link to attend, and those who do register will receive all of the information that they need to have for our kindergarten program, which is why we encourage early registration. Registration is open year-round for families. We just want them to know that. So when we give dates of a registration window, that's just in hopes that we will have the opportunity to plan our programs and again, share information with our families. So the online registration for kindergarten will take place from March 1st to the 15th. And families whose children presently attend a Milton Public School preschool will have an opportunity to submit documentation to prove residency and provide up-to-date medical information at their home schools of Cunningham and Tucker on February 28th and 29th. Families will be notified of school assignments by April 30th, and screening for kindergartners will take place also in late May and early June. We noted in last week's blog activities that students were participating in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We had younger students who were creating art projects. Others wrote essays, which were shared at the Milton Interfaith Clergy Association's annual celebration. This was held at the Concord Baptist Church on Monday evening. During that evening, our Tucker fourth graders and Milton High School chorus students were a big hit as they brought joyful singing to an evening of festivities. On January 19th and 20th at 7 p.m. and on January 21st at 2 p.m. in the Pierce Auditorium, the Pierce Players will be performing its production of State Fair. We hope that members of the Milton community will take advantage of this, this wonderful performance. On January 25th at 7 p.m. at the Council on Aging, wherein we have our school committee who will be hosting a forum on equity and learning. This will be a hybrid meeting with a link to follow. Our next school committee meeting will be February 1st. And finally, the annual open public budget hearing is scheduled as a hybrid meeting on February 8th at the Council on Aging. This will be via Zoom at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Sheehan. Next on our agenda, we have Citizen Speak. This is an opportunity for folks in the community who might want to share their thoughts with us. We have 15 minutes set aside. If anyone in our viewing audience would like to speak, you can just raise your hand on Zoom and we will promote you to panelists so that you can share your thoughts with us. Do we see any hands raised?
No, there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, we will move on then. The next item on our agenda is the chair's report. And we have to talk about the district leadership transition. And I just have a few comments to share with the public and with you all. And this is, as you hear from all that you've heard already this evening, this is an exciting time for Milton Public Schools. And as usual, there are a lot of things happening. I am very pleased to announce that we have reached a tentative agreement with Dr. Peter Burrows to become the next superintendent of Milton Public Schools. Since this item is not on our agenda tonight, we cannot take a vote on this tonight, but we've scheduled a special meeting to ratify Dr. Burrows' contract on January 23rd, next Monday at 7 a.m. Dr. Burrows will begin working in Milton on July 1st, 2023, and we are working with him on plans to come to Milton for a number of days before July 1st to begin work on his entry plan. Meanwhile, Vice Chair Lizzie Carroll and I have been in conversation with our central office team about transition planning for the period of time when Superintendent Sheehan leaves on Friday, February 3rd, and when Dr. Burrows arrives on July 1st. While those plans are still being finalized, I do have a few things to share with you all tonight. I'm happy to report that Assistant Superintendent Garth McKinney has agreed to serve as interim superintendent between February 6th and July 1st, 2023. We are very appreciative of Dr. McKinney's willingness to step up and lead during this transition period. We're still working out the details, but at our next meeting on February 1st, we'll take a vote on Dr. McKinney's appointment and give our thanks to Janet Sheehan for all she's done for us this year and every year she's been with us as a leader in Milton Public Schools. This will be a brief 5-month-long transition period, and stability is a priority for our district, as always, but especially during this transition period. So we believe it's best to handle this transition in-house rather than bringing in someone new to lead the district during this brief transition. Dr. McKinney, along with Assistant Superintendent for Business, Dr. Pavlicek, and our central office team, with the support of our strong district leadership team, will be able to provide the stability and a smooth transition for Milton Public Schools. We have many things already in place or already in progress for the rest of this school year, including such things as professional development, budget planning, staff evaluations, hiring of some key positions, preschool, kindergarten, and first grade enrollment, kindergarten screenings, summer programs, a couple of town meetings, high school graduation, union negotiations, and more. We are very excited about the future of Milton Public Schools under the leadership of our incoming superintendent, Peter Burrows. But we continue to be very thankful for the hard work and dedication to the success of all our students by our Milton Public Schools staff. And we're grateful for the continued goodwill of the entire Milton Public Schools community during this 5-month transition period before Dr. Burrows steps into his new leadership role. Any questions or comments about the transition plan? Hearing none, we'll move on to the policy subcommittee report. Dr. Carroll.
Thank you, Chair Rosemarin. So tonight we are doing a first reading of policy JIC, the student discipline policy. You've all received 2 copies, a clean copy, which you may find easier to read, but then also a copy that reflects with highlighted sections, sort of the key new content that has been added in, which the policy subcommittee has brought forward to you tonight. I can share my screen in a moment and we can look at that if you all would like to do that. But I just wanted to briefly sort of provide the context because this has been a lengthy process bringing us to tonight. And I know it's late, so I'm going to try to do this concisely. But as you know, we've been working in the policy subcommittee on this particular policy since last spring, but consistently and in earnest since September. And so I want to thank my colleagues, Member Varghese and Member White. We have spent 4 policy meetings working through this policy. We've had some other things, of course, that you've seen come through, but this has been the consistent piece that we've been focused on. Our goal has been to work collaboratively with our Milton Public Schools leaders. Of course, really appreciate the support of Superintendent Sheehan and Assistant Superintendent Dr. McKinney in particular. But I really want to recognize and appreciate Susan Maselli, Claire Galloway-Jones, and Adina Schechter, who have participated very thoughtfully in the conversations all the way through. And I think that really was our goal as a subcommittee, to make sure that we could update this policy in a way that supported practice. And I feel that with what we've brought before you tonight, we're prepared to do that. I really thank Susan, Claire, and Adina for all of their time and patience with this process, but they're really great insights, which have informed us each step of the way here. So just to help us remember kind of where we've come from, we voted and actually updated this exact policy JIC in October with some recommendations that had been shared by MASC with a suite of other policies that they, as you know, frequently kind of share updates in waves. And we did take some recommendations from them in the middle of the fall. At that time, we knew that we were going to come back to this to go basically further in the updates than what MASC had proposed. And that would be to really get this policy aligned with our Milton Public Schools strategic plan, priorities, and practices around restorative discipline. So that's the work that we've been doing. And when I pull up the screen to show you the highlighted sections, I can identify for you sort of where you see the new content that goes beyond what MASC had provided, which has come to us through our colleagues, Claire, Adina, and Susan. So that's that piece. The other part that has driven this process was the need to address our disproportionality data. And so that has been a clear goal. And as I said, to support the strategic plan, especially around safe and supportive schools and equity and learning, to make sure that this policy wasn't sort of contradicting some of the goals and priorities that are present in our strategic plan, as well as making sure that our policy is in accordance with our student handbooks, which have been being updated, and we approved updated versions in August. And we needed to make sure that our policy was sort of like consistent with our student handbooks as well. So that's really all that we've been up to. The final piece is that actually since October, November 8th, a new state law, updates to state law that's relevant here went into effect. And so that has driven additional updates to this policy as well. And I can show you the highlights. So if it's okay with you all, can I just sort of highlight the two sections and see if by those you have questions for us to discuss? I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay. On this copy, I think it's green if you're looking at, this is a Google Doc, so if you're looking at the Word doc, it's red, but the highlights are the same. So here in this first paragraph and this section of 3 paragraphs, this is where you can see new language that has been added in to address what I was speaking to, and really explain our shift to restorative discipline in the Milton Public Schools. Just really important to, of course, point out that the goal here is contributing to a culture of respect where students follow school guidelines and provisions of the law. So there's no part of shifting this policy toward a restorative model that means we no longer follow school guidelines and provisions of the law. So that's important. This section, the second change you note here is that we moved the emergency removal portion of the policy, which had been given to us by MASC, which detailed sort of procedures in place for the various levels, emergency removal, suspension, et cetera. We just moved it up higher into above suspension because we felt that just made more sense with the flow. So that's why you see that here, and it's been deleted down here, but that's simply just having pasted it above. And then the third key new section for your consideration is at the end here. And this part is attempting to update, reflecting the latest version of our state law 37H and 3/4 that requires now that we use a multi-tiered system with restorative responses at each tier to address harmful behaviors without unnecessarily taking time away from learning. I'll open it up now, I guess first to Member White or Member Varghese. Is there anything you would like to say about the policy before we open it up? Okay. Any questions or comments? Or section that you would like me to scroll to look at?
Okay.
Dr. Carroll, I'm having trouble seeing everybody.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through. I don't see that anybody's indicating they want to speak.
Okay.
This is just the first reading, so you have time now in the next 2 weeks to consider this, and if there are particular pieces that you would like to discuss, we still have that opportunity at our next meeting. Okay.
Well, I know I'd just like to thank you and the committee and the staff that you mentioned, Claire, Adina, and Sue, for the work that went into putting this together. It's a wonderful sign of progress and clarifying what our policy is that will then inform our practice. And I think it helps to get all of us on the same page and towards these restorative discipline practices. So I thank you for doing this hard work, and I appreciate how long it's taken. It has been a big undertaking, and thank you all for your efforts in making that happen.
I'm kind of actually glad that we presented, or that we're looking at this tonight, having just seen the presentations from the YRBS and the YHS, because it's a reminder of the urgency of this work and getting this policy right to support the important interventions that are necessary, especially at our middle and high school, to address these harmful behaviors that students need support to work through. So that was sort of serendipitous in a way. And yeah, just thank you all very much. And we'll have this, I guess, on our agenda next time for the second reading and a vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda, we have Finance Subcommittee. Member White.
Okay. Very short report. We met this morning with the Select Board's Finance Subcommittee, and moving forward in the budget, Amy Dexter put in the number that we voted last week, which reflected not only the rollover budget, the opera restorations, but also the special ed requests that are going to be necessary, as well as the needs identified with DEI, elementary, middle, high school, and technology. So the total that Amy is using now for her calculations is 62,484,812. And we'll see how things go, because we still haven't gotten information from the governor's budget yet, or information about some of the other monies and that we might be expecting that could change on the town side, what the available cash is going to be. So, and then the other thing to report on finance is that we were originally hoping to meet with our warrant committee subcommittee on schools tomorrow evening, but they couldn't make that because the warrant committee is actually having to meet tomorrow evening. So we're tentatively scheduled, or I've reached out to Emily, who is the head of the warrant committee's subcommittee on schools, saying that we would be available Tuesday, January 31st at 7 in the evening. I have not heard back from her. And I did ask them to look at their budget binders, pick them up, and come up with any questions in advance so that we could have time to prepare a response to their questions. So I still haven't heard back from them, and I had emailed her yesterday. So that's the finance report. And then we have one vendor warrant to approve tonight, and it's vendor warrant number 27, dated the 19th of January, 2023, in the amount of $357,486.50. $499.04. Can I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, let's just do a roll call vote. Chair Rose Marin,
Yes.
Dr. Carroll,
Yes.
Member Ross Denny,
Yes.
Member Varghese,
Yes.
Dr. Miranda,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Thank you for that. Glenn, is there anything else from finance that I'm forgetting or not including?
No, we're just going to continue to monitor revenue from the state and other sources for the next bit until we get a clearer picture of where we are as a town.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And that's finance.
Great. Thank you, Member White. Next, we have Facilities Advisory Committee report. Member White, you're back up.
Okay. So we were just there this evening, Glenn and I, to talk to the facilities subcommittee. And basically, it was a meeting where I gave them an update on the short-term needs. And we were talking specifically about the .32 space for our little ones and where that was at, and that we're still waiting to hear back from them as to whether or not they're interested in coming into a contract with us for that need. And then the other, I also gave them an update on the school building project and the Fontbonne Convent proposal, and that's going to be going to town meeting in February. And the other thing we talked about is that, Bill Ritchie was there, and as we move forward and we think about not only our short-term needs and the new building needs, we're trying to stay focused on the current facilities, the 6 buildings that we have to take care of and maintain. And, one of the things that happens is that Bill goes to capital planning every year and makes a very detailed list that we've approved, all the needs that he has identified that need funding to continue to keep the buildings in good shape. And, I think that typically the amount of monies that he's requesting every year is in the $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.5 million range. He typically does not get anything near that. So like this past year, he was given $300,000. This request for this year, fiscal year 24, is for about $750,000. And again, I think the people who were on the facility subcommittee, who were also, involved in the last school building project, are concerned that as our buildings are getting older, because they're 20 plus years now, that the maintenance needs are going to become more significant, and the town has got to figure out a way to fund those needs so that we can keep our buildings going. I mean, Bill was talking today and Glenn was speaking about it, just a new boiler, how much that would cost, and that not only is the cost an issue, but getting the parts, getting the equipment with, sometimes to order a boiler takes a year. So they were very concerned about if something were to happen, that we would have difficulty getting the parts and not only the labor, but to procure the parts and the delay to get those necessary items to us to fix the problems that we have. But so I had suggested to Bill that it would be helpful if he could come into the school committee and maybe the select board and just discuss in some detail the maintenance needs, so that, as he wraps things up, people will be aware of the situation. So that's the meeting tonight.
Well, thank you, Member White. Dr. Carroll?
Thanks. I just have a quick question, not for discussion, but just to kind of, I think I've been wondering, and as you're talking, Member White, I'm wondering if this is something that's been discussed or that could be discussed going forward. So as we know about various facilities needs, especially pertaining to energy, like are we looking into, I know there are various grant programs and opportunities, incentives to move toward renewable energy sources in the state. And, you know, we have goals and deadlines as a state. I'm wondering, what are the opportunities for school districts? So, for example, as we're mapping out when we need to be replacing key infrastructure, such as boilers, et cetera, do we have our eye on like the green communities grants, the different opportunities that might support us to move towards more sustainable systems in the future? Just a wonder.
Yeah, Bill Ritchie spoke to that tonight somewhat because he has written multiple grants and received multiple grants. I didn't, I wrote it down, but I don't have my notes in front of me right now. Glenn, do you remember how much money he has received in grants and what he's done?
Well, it's certainly in the millions that over time he's written for green community grants. So they've been very active in searching them out. Certain things like with regard to the boilers, our boilers, as Betty said, are 20 years old. We do have 2 in every building, by the way, just in case anyone's worrying that a boiler is going to go down. You're not going to have any heat for a year. They're redundant systems. But it's one of those things where with good maintenance, you can run these for quite a while. What you have to do is an analysis at some point of saying, is it worth it to repair at this place? They lose efficiency. When do you upgrade to a newer system and so forth? And that's sort of something you're constantly looking at. We talked about, some people's houses, they're moving to heat pumps now because there are grants for that. Actually, given the cost of electricity right now going up crazy, it's questionable whether that would be a reasonable option for a facility of the size of a school. So, it's constantly looking at those things. Our biggest concern, of course, is as the buildings get over, maintenance becomes, more and more important. Luckily, Bill's staff over the years, he's built up to the point where a lot of the maintenance we can do ourselves in-house, which has been a huge savings in terms of, money not spent on other things. We have these ventilation units on the roof, the rooftop units. We have, I think it's 92 of them on all the different buildings, and they run $500,000 a piece. So if you can, lubricate them and change all the belts and change all the filters and do all those things yourself, they can run for a good long time. If you don't do that, they will fail. So it's important to really keep abreast of all that stuff. And that's a lot of what we're looking at.
Let's get Bill to come in soon, and he can address those issues too, moving forward with our future plans for the buildings.
Yes, thank you, Member White. If I could ask you to work with Bill to identify a meeting that would be, a time that would be convenient for him on our school committee calendar, that he'd like to come and report to us and share his thinking before he retires, which is just later this year or later this spring, is my understanding. So we really want to sort of download some of his thinking and be sure that we understand what we've got ahead of us, and that would be great. It'd be much appreciated. So thank you. Thank you for that report. Next on our agenda, we have the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee report. Dr. Miranda.
Yes, thank you, Chair Rosemarin. So yes, the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee met this week, and we reviewed progress against the 3 pillars of our district strategic plan, as we've heard now several times mentioned just tonight. But just a reminder that those 3 pillars are personalized learning, safe and supportive schools, and equity in learning. I was also very glad that we had the earlier presentation by the Cunningham School, because as you heard from that presentation, our strategic plan is being operationalized in our schools on a daily basis. We're definitely seeing progress in that way. Just a reminder that we believe that if we continue to go deeper in each of these pillars, that students will experience robust and academically rich school experiences. So definitely a reminder that we're going to see a shift in sort of the experiences of our individual students, but also we will see growth in our district as we see growth in high stakes testing, which I know that for some of us, those are important. So definitely the idea is that we will continue to see growth in terms of our testing outcomes. Lastly, the thinking behind our strategic planning is that we will see performance outcomes such as achievement and opportunity gaps will be reduced or eliminated as a result of us making progress across the 3 pillars. I will not go into huge detail on everything, but I will share a couple of highlights in terms of what progress we have made from the last update that we shared just a couple of months ago. In our equity in learning pillar, we have definitely continued to move or have a number of professional development opportunities available both to everyone in the district through late start professional development opportunities. Our director, Claire Galloway Jones, has been leading some professional development sessions and partnering very closely with Adina Schechter on restorative justice coaching in sessions that have been done. Additionally, we were talking about a partnership with the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education. We know that we need educators to, just in terms of in general, I think in the field, there's a challenge with finding enough educators, but also finding educators that are diverse. And so we are looking to begin implementing a program that's called Today's Students, Tomorrow's Teachers. And this would help us develop an in-house pipeline of teachers beginning in the 9th grade. We are looking to begin rolling that out either in the spring or in the fall of 2023. As we heard also today from Dr. Carroll and the members of the policy subcommittee, Director Claire Galloway Jones has been supportive and involved in the revising of the student discipline policy. And additionally, we are looking, have also been looking at the metrics, has been working very closely with the strategic metrics team to make sure that we're looking at targets of student performance, college and career preparation, and student and teacher experiences, and thinking about equity through an equity lens, of course. So that is in the equity and learning space. In terms of safe and supportive schools, we also heard a lot of this today. As you know, we do have SEL leads in every one of the schools. We have 2 per schools, and they have been undergoing a lot of professional development training as facilitators, so they can bring training back to their schools. And there has been, and also we heard about it tonight, in terms of the rollout of the Calm Classroom. So that has started, and we're moving forward in that regard. Also, the second step curriculum has been updated. We purchased and rolled out the pre-K to 5 classrooms curriculum. We also heard tonight about Vape Educate, so that is definitely something that we're taking advantage of and making sure that students and families know and are able to go through that program if needed. And I'll leave it there for our safe and supportive schools. And then looking at personalized learning, again, we heard a lot of this tonight, but there has been a number of leadership has gone through training around personalized learning. The last training schedule is happening next week. And also our leadership has gone through a training through the DataWise project, has completed that training in terms of analyzing and using data to be able to move forward or move the pillar of personalized learning. The other big update is that training has also started, has rolled out. We just have the elementaries left around universal design for learning trainings that are happening. Also, we had the personalized learning forum, and we also had the safe and supportive schools forum as well. The last thing that I would say is that we did spend quite a lot of time talking about how we can do a better job at marketing and communicating about the strategic plan so that there is greater understanding across the community on what we are trying to accomplish through these 3 strategic pillars. And also, how do we make sure that we are making more explicit the connection between our strategic data tracking and our strategic plan. We didn't sort of develop a list of concrete next steps of how we're going to get there, but we began recognizing that that is a problem and that we need to do a better job at on how we speak to the strategic plan and connecting it back to the ultimate outcomes that we want to see as a result of the strategic plan implementation. So those conversations were started. So I look forward to sharing more as the work of the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee continues.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Miranda. Any questions or comments for Dr. Miranda? Okay, hearing none, thank you for that report. Next item on our agenda are next meeting agenda items. As we mentioned, our next meeting is a week from tonight will be our public forum on equity in learning, and the details of that will be provided on the Milton Public Schools website. And then our subsequent meeting will be February 1st, and we know that we will be voting on the appointment of our interim superintendent at that meeting. And I believe on the agenda for then we'll be receiving the program of studies from the high school. And I don't know if we're actually taking a vote at that time or not. I don't know if Superintendent Sheehan knows, or either Dr. McKinney or Dr. Pavlicek have any information on that. But
we will get that to you as soon as possible, Chair Rosemarin.
Okay, great, thank you. So if there are any other thoughts about our agenda items, there was one that Member Osteni suggested, and I don't remember exactly what it was. Do you remember what it was, Member Osteni?
Yes, it was. I would love to have a by-school report of what data has been submitted into the incident reporting system. And I'd love to see it in comparison to what we just saw from the Milton Coalition's data set.
Great.
And what we've done with that data. Actually, the third thing is, so what?
Great. Great. Thank you. Okay. So that, oh, I see Dr. Carroll.
We'll have health and wellness next time also.
Excellent.
And the curriculum and instruction committee will also have that. So a lot of new stuff.
Excellent.
I also, so I know that we had talked about the February 8th forum, community forum. Is that, and I know that I had realized my own conflict with that because I had failed to mark it down, but I just wanted to make sure everybody else had that on the calendars.
Right. Hopefully y'all do. It's February 8th that we had set aside for our last public forum, and that's on our budget. That will also be serve as our annual open budget hearing for our budget, and that will be taking place as our other forums have been at the Council on Aging. It'll be a hybrid meeting. So, okie doke. Very good. So that all being said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. I have a second, please.
Second.
Great, thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Carroll?
Yes.
Member White?
Yes.
Member Varghese?
Yes.
Member Osteni?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
And Chair Rosemary, yes. Very good. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
See you
Good night.
soon.
Thank you.
Night.